morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to take a look at a new ruling, which has going to been issued by the Pokémon Company International, which I believe actually equates to a mistranslation of a card, which no one had actually noticed. And we will, of course, have a chat in a minute about how important this is and why this could be relevant and all of that. But first, we need to actually go through what the ruling was and what it actually means. Sound like a plan? Excellent. So it's all to do with this new Minior, which obviously the joke is it's not actually new really at all. The Minior's not hideously old. It is a card that originally came around in Paradox Rift, so like a few sets ago, but actually the ruling also applies to Venusaur and Snivy, which is of course a card that came around years ago at this stage, back in Cosmic Eclipse. What do those two cards have in common? Well, they both have abilities that activate when you attach a card, an energy card, from your hand to this Pokemon. So Venusaur and Snivy, if it's active, when you attach a grass energy, you can switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active. And Minior, if it's on the bench, when you attach an energy from your hand, you can switch this Pokemon with your active Pokemon. So what's actually gone and happened? Well, here's what it tells us on the website. Errata for Minior and Venusaur and Snivy. The card text change for Minior and Venusaur and Snivy GX will be effective immediately. Due to an error in the card text for those cards, the text of the cards will be updated. The original text for Minior's Farflame Meteor ability was, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, when you attach an energy card from your hand to this Pokemon, you may switch it with your active Pokemon. The original intention was to be able to use this ability whenever you attach an energy card from your hand to this Pokemon, not just once per turn. It is possible to use this ability more than once per turn. The new card text for Minior's Far-Flying Meteor ability will be, during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, whenever you attach an energy card from your hand to this Pokemon, you may switch it with your active Pokemon. And this is one of those times where I start feeling very proud of myself for the fact that I've actually learned to translate cards from Japanese. My Japanese as a whole is spotty, far from perfect, needs improvement, must try harder, etc. But my Pokemon card translation skills are honestly pretty good right now. So I went to the Japanese text of Minior, and it does actually say very literally, during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, when you attach an energy from your hand to this Pokemon, use this ability one time. This Pokemon switches with your active. But the key is, it doesn't say once per turn, when you attach an energy from your hand, you may switch to the active. It says, during your turn, when you attach an energy from your hand to this Pokemon, you may use this ability one time. What that means is, it was always intended to be one use per energy attachment. It was not intended to be one use per turn, and that is a very, very, very big difference. Now, in terms of this card as a whole, why would you want to switch in multiple times? Well, maybe you got a high retreat Pokemon in your active spot. So you want to switch in this, because you don't have any switching cards in your hand for whatever reason. So you switch in this, retreat into something like a Tatsugiri to go and find yourself a supporter card. Oh, but you've already retreated once. Don't worry about it. You can just attach a second energy, switch in again. Jobs are good. And I'm not saying you will. I'm just saying these are things that potentially could be done. If we go back a little bit, there was actually a stadium which could make very nice use of an ability like this. Whenever a player's active Pokemon moves to the bench during their turn, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. That was, of course, Spikemuth. And we would use that to self-damage Pokemon, but we could potentially use it to KO our own Pokemon to get things like Ino being more powerful, or to turn on Counter Catcher, for instance, which is a card that only works if you're behind on prizes, as an example. And it's things like this. This is not something which we want to do every time, every 5 seconds, because if it was, we would have figured out earlier that the card was mistranslated. And I believe it is a mistranslation. Unless I'm just really bad at translating. But I'm pretty sure I've had a read. I'm pretty sure what it says. And like I say, on the website it does say there was an error in the text. So, if it was a big deal such that everyone was trying this and it was failing, we would have noticed this earlier. But I'm saying there are some situations like switching a Pokemon in to retreat to then switch into attack, or switching in and out so that Spikemuth can get lots of damage, or things along those lines that actually would mean you would potentially want to do this. But what about Venusaur and Snivy? Venusaur and Snivy is the other Pokemon which has been hit by this. Now this of course has long rotated out, although obviously in expanded, still very relevant. What they say on the website here is this: a similar error occurred on Venusaur and Snivy GX's Shining Vine ability. The original text was, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, when you attach a grass energy from your hand to it, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active. The new text for Venusaur and Snivy GX's Shining Vine ability will be, during your turn, if this Pokemon is your active, whenever you attach a grass energy from your hand to it, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. So it's a similar kind of thing here, but instead of switching yourself, you are going and switching your opponent. And again, I'm looking at the Japanese wording of this card, because I've obviously gone and looked it up, and it says, during your turn, if this Pokemon is your active, when you attach a grass energy from your hand to it, you may use this ability one time. So it very much seems to be that the point here is you can use it one time when you attach an energy, not you can use it once during your turn when you attach an energy, which is a pretty big difference. Or a Pokemon that you wanted to kind of switch to the bench and then back into the active to remove some kind of effect that would give it protection, for instance. You know, this Pokemon doesn't take damage from Pokemon blah 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 for the turn. We switch it to the bench and then back to the active. Those kind of effects go away and then you can attack it. This one I can see more actual uses for it. Obviously, we know that you can't always attach multiple energies during your turn. Like I said, there's a lot of wrinkles here for why this has never actually come up. The fact that both of these abilities used them multiple times per turn is a stretch at best, why you'd want to, and then the fact that you've actually got to attach multiple energies per turn, which isn't always that likely. There is a reason why it took the errata, and for Venusaur and Snivy, we're talking years here, before anybody actually noticed that we needed to change this. And my theory is, and I'm not the only one that said this, Pokepop was going to said this over on social media as well, and they really know what they're talking about with this. This is probably because of something else which is coming in the future. Nobody was, and I pay a lot of attention to all the Pokemon, everything. Nobody was asking for this errata. An errata, by the way, for those that don't know, is an official way of saying, even though the card is written in one way, we now read it in another way. The text is wrong. It should always be read like this, even though that's technically not what it says, all right? Something else is coming. I don't know what, I don't know when, but something else is coming. A new Pokemon with a similarly worded ability from Japan, which is going to be a lot more relevant than this. There is going to be another Pokemon with a similarly worded ability, or maybe even an energy card here. Or a Pokemon that attaches lots of energy, or something is coming, and I don't know what that something is. And I absolutely could be wrong, but my first reaction here was, something is coming, and that is going to make us go, oh, yeah, that's wrong. But now that we've done the errata, we've made the change, it's absolutely fine. And look, I know a lot of this video is, hey, here are a couple of cards that you don't want to use their ability multiple times per turn, but hey, you can if you really want to. one of them rotated out years ago. But this is a case of it's an important point that you need to know, and there is almost certainly something coming in the very near future which is going to make this much more important. But I have told you about all of this now, so now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me if you or anyone you know had noticed this. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Quentin Janot, who's one of our newer patrons, but seems to be a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.